Go all the way from everything wrong with God of War Ragnarok. Yep, here we go. 2 weeks ago. Jesus. Hey, yeah, no problem, Saint. Thanks for stopping by. Always appreciate it.
God of War Ragnarok is gaming's #1 father-son simulator, where one of them doesn't have to die tragically in order to win Game of the Year. It just pretends that it's going to happen. I've seen discussion on whether this or Elden Ring is
Yep, catch you
2022's
later,
best
Saint.
game. Seeing as I never bothered sinning Elden Ring, you can probably determine which I think is the rightful winner of Jeff Keighley's Game of the Year, as long as my bestest best friend Hideo Kojima didn't release a game award. However, I will give God of War Ragnarok the best case scenario award for making the most out of a narrative that began as a power fantasy around Greek myths for you to then violently kill or violently have sex with, into a narrative about becoming better than your more simple and violent origins by getting married to a supportive partner, raising a son with firm discipline, and refusing to kill people who were practically begging for it before finally, begrudgingly, killing them while stating how much you didn't want to.
Yeah, that's essentially God of War Ragnarok. Fucking trying to do the right thing, and people still asking to get fucking killed because they won't stop doing what they're doing.
I blame taking lead out of gasoline for the more sensitive tonal shift in modern video games. Back when people who had unknowingly poisoned their brains were in charge of development, they created a slew of characters who hated their parents, society, women, and themselves. A psychotic golden age ruled by angry gasoline gods. But with the new unleaded crop of developers in charge of direction, we are being drowned in nuance, lest our creations have ugly edges that challenge modern societal norms instead of explanations for why they are temporarily inconvenienced by a psychological dilemma or moral choice. I'm being mean. After all, the characters are well realized and acted, and I was especially pleased with how the Norse gods were given more depth than the shallow assholes the Greek gods were made out to be.
Yeah, compared to the older God of War games, the Greek gods like had no backdrop or like story behind them really, besides their normal story compared to the rest of them. Like the new Norse gods, the Norse gods have a lot of like stories tied to them. Like all you hear on the boat is about stories of the gods and how they affected the 9 realms in God of War. Like it's really good. They did a um, really good on the story. That's why I voted for best narrative for them. Compared to, I would have voted best narrative for Elden Ring, but at the time of the Game Awards, there wasn't enough lore videos out for Elden Ring. That's the biggest thing. The narratives in all the Souls games are driven by the community. So if the community hasn't put out stuff for the narrative, you won't either fully understand it yourself and or won't get like all the full picture of it. Granted, they're just theories and stuff that creators are playing out, the theories of the story based on information given to them, or just repeating facts that you get throughout the game, just put in a clear-cut video, which makes sense. But at the time, there wasn't enough videos out because obviously with the time and the bigger creators now, like VatiVidya is a lot bigger than he used to be. Not a bad thing. But with that is the improvement of quality of videos, and with the improvement of quality, you need more time to put out videos to have a higher quality video. And because of that, there wasn't a lot of videos out about the narrative of Elden Ring by the time of the Game Awards. There was a few, just not a lot. So, and also compared to the other Souls games like Dark Souls 1, 2, and 3, they, like, by the time of Dark Souls 3, there was already an established narrative. So it would have made sense at this point for Dark Souls 3 to, like, you know, win Game of the Year, best narrative and stuff. Like, reason why I voted best narrative because God of War Ragnarok already had an established narrative prior to, you know, the Game Awards, compared to Elden Ring, which is the start of a new IP. Granted, it probably won't have another game after it, like another Elden Ring, like Elden Ring 2 or shit like that. And only and Miyazaki doesn't plan to double dip in the well to actually like get more than like they made a hit of a game that like pretty much a magnum opus of Elden Ring. Like they cannot go higher than that, or at least they don't plan to try to, because you can sour what you've already done because of it.
But if I'm expected to forget the absurdity of the old games and juxtapose with the new, that isn't happening, especially when such a large portion of it concerns Kratos' death. Again, they did manage to avoid turning the Norse chapter into 3 games this time, unlike God of War 2 and 3, which were just the same game split into 2. I don't know who decided that games set in Norse mythology have to be so long, but this and Assassin's Creed Valhalla are both drinking from the same mug of reindeer piss. But, as I've always held, the gameplay should decide the length, not the other way around, which would be the Assassin's Creed approach. Not much has changed gameplay-wise since the last game, except for playable Atreus sections, taking the old if it ain't broke, why make it any better approach. But since the gameplay was so meaty, it managed to get away with that for one more game without feeling tired despite the game's length,
True,
though I
very
will say
true.
the game feels a bit easier this time around. For the first half of the game, I found myself wondering.
It's easy depending on what difficulty you play on. Granted, I wasn't playing on the hardest difficulty, but there, like, it felt easy in some sections, and some sections it felt hard. And that was only because I was doing extra content probably before I should have been doing it. Like end game content, like the Berserkers. I was trying to touch base with some of them before I was ready, getting my ass beat. And also, there was a lot of times where I was running around without a resurrection stone. Dumb of me. I just didn't have the fucking money for it. See, I feel like you weren't really getting much hack silver until much later in the game, which is a lot better. I think in the first game you were getting a lot of hack silver right away. Also, I feel like you weren't at the same time. I don't know. I felt like I was running with more resurrection stone more in the first game than I was on the second game. I was constantly dying, and then I would have to go through an area without resurrection stone because there wasn't any shops in between what I was doing.
If Kratos logged onto his Smurf account before heading to a new area. Probably has something to do with how whenever you are about to be punished by an enemy,
Probably
your
don't need closed
companion will yell a
captions for this
warning or
'cause
tell
it
you
is
exactly what to do
captioned
to avoid
already.
it. I'm used to being backseated during my Twitch streams, but not in-game by the characters themselves. The ease might have been warranted.
And that would have been a lot. Like, I'd have a problem with it, but I also feel like it was over the top. I wish there was an option to turn it off, like character heads up, because they definitely did push that constantly. Like I always heard, watch out from your left. Oh, you're on fire. You probably already know that. Yeah, I already fucking know it. You don't need to tell me. Or constantly, every time you get frozen, hearing Lumia, oh, I got ice in my stump. I get it. I'm frozen. Don't have to tell me.
Kratos started the game with all the upgrades he had at the end of his 2018 outing, but this time they finally stopped trying to come up with a reason for why Kratos loses all the abilities in the first 10 minutes of the new game. He just has this time, somehow losing all the armor and upgrades to his weapons and health, and the game just shrugs its shoulders and mumbles something about Fimbulwinter breaking things down, except for things without an upgrade path. I guess the lesson is that no matter how well crafted the narrative, the truly weak parts of it are the ones that every game has to sacrifice for the sake of being a video game sequel, even ones that are nominated for Game of the Year.
Yeah.
There is some heavy unaccounted for
Granted
irony
that,
having Kratos mourn
like,
his dead
losing
wife
your
by
stuff-
fondling the bag that carried her ashes
It
while
was
still
2
wearing the
years,
ashes of
so
his
it makes
first dead
sense he would
wife.
lose some
I'm
shit,
amazed
but-
Atreus was even able to hunt a deer. Fimbulwinter has been going on for 3 years now. No vegetation means deer starve to death, but life seems to be doing fine despite the apocalyptic winter.
Very true.
Kratos finally learned his son's name. Now, if only he could reveal what their family name is. I don't think even his first wife and daughter knew that one. Dog sledding is a new travel feature in Ragnarok, which Kratos somehow steers with his mind. Since there's no lead connecting to the wolves pulling it, Kratos just holds onto the handlebars and the wolves just know where he wants to go.
Yeah,
Freya
true.
attacks them on their way home, which should be impossible for her, because Odin cursed her to never be able to leave Midgard, and to never be able to attack anyone, even in self-defense. That's just one of many things the game shoves under the carpet with lazy Fimbulwinter excuses.
They explain it further later on in the
Don't set
story
up
with the fact that she had Sigrun help her, but like you don't learn that until like much later. It's kind of dumb that it was structured like that because you should be able to um you should be able learn that pretty easily, or there should be like notes about it that you can pick up right away so you understand how she was able to attack
rules
you.
for your characters if you aren't going to follow through with them in the next game. One of the disappointing things of this adaptation of Norse myth is how little of the Ragnarok myth was utilized. Loki's children, Fenrir and Jormungandr, are both present but barely utilized, here only to have their origins explained in a less messed up way than the actual myths, but for no real payoff despite how interesting a concept they are
Yeah,
and how
true.
important they were to
Both
the mythos,
Jormungandr
especially
and
in the deaths
Fenrir
of
weren't
Thor
really a
and Odin.
big part of the
Putting out
story
one candle
at
doesn't
all.
change the ambience of the room enough to help you go to sleep. With 2 dead wives in his past, it's a wonder Kratos gets any sleep with all the haunting flashbacks he must have.
True,
That isn't
you
where
would think he'd
Kratos
have
placed the
constant
Leviathan
nightmares.
axe before going to sleep. It was on the post along with the Blades of Chaos closer to the door.
He crawled through here.
Atreus crawled through here while carrying a dead wolf larger than himself. I don't think Fenrir's body would even fit through that crevice.
Yeah, how long would he have to sleep for that to be iced over and shit?
Atreus.
Another second and that would have been child number 2 Kratos killed without realizing
Yeah,
it.
100%.
You'd think this moment would have more of an effect on him.
Focus. Heal.
Well, it's because he's not dead yet. That's why. I mean,
If
granted,
only
he
that's
is
how
pissy
healing
and
actually
shit.
worked in the game. I have to find green crystals and step on them.
Can I come in?
I mean, they probably explain it as like how if Kratos is critical health and then you leave a battle, it like heals you up a little bit. Probably kind of like that. It's like heals you bare minimum, and then healing crystals fill you up.
I have meat.
I'm going to take a sin off for both sticking to the sequel bait ending of the last game and then subverting it a second later. Though there is a lot more snow than seen in the original shot, Thor shouldn't be able to come to Kratos' home. There's a new stave of protection Atreus put up, which is what kept everyone away in the last game until Kratos cut down one of the trees forming it, and if Freya can't break it, I don't see Thor breaking it either.
It's because I think you missed that part, but Atreus breaks it when he transformed into a bear.
Thor brought mead, but he's actually stopped drinking, so he pours himself a cup knowing he isn't going to drink it. As much as I enjoy this scene, it doesn't make much sense for
I think he poured one for Atreus and one for Kratos. I think that's was the point, but since Kratos and Atreus won't drink it, they just sit there until Odin comes by and drinks some.
Odin to send Thor in first to do nothing, when Odin is the one going to be doing all the talking anyway. I suppose this was a consequence of teasing Thor's arrival at the end of the last game instead of Odin.
True, but also I feel like Thor was more of a piece of like intimidation before Odin comes in to like do the talking. Like Thor was set as an intimidation factor to set up the scene for Odin to come in and like, oh, you're scared of Thor? I'm gonna do all the talking now. Like, you probably heard all the stories about Thor, so you probably don't want, piss him off at the moment.
There were some misunderstandings. Regrettable ones. But I think we all have a better idea of who we're dealing with.
I really enjoyed Odin's portrayal in this game. He's like Dumbledore crossed with a mafia boss.
How does peace
True.
strike the esteemed, retired god of war? How about we just don't kill each other? How about you stay home, kick up your feet, seek no quarrel with me, and I'll have none with you.
Odin offers a pretty good deal. A deal so good that had Kratos taken it, I don't know how Odin would have moved forward with his own plan, since he needs Atreus in order
Very
to complete
true.
it. No matter what Kratos chose, he would end up in conflict with Odin.
Of course, it means
Very
that
true.
that one,
So you want to
that
have
one has to stop
Atreus
his
help him.
search for Tyr. Tyr's old ways are dead. He is dead. You understand?
Revealing that he knows Atreus has been searching for Tyr, who is supposed to be dead, and warning him from continuing confirms Tyr is alive, since you don't warn people to stop searching for a corpse. Also, Odin goes from warning Atreus away from searching for Tyr, to using that to his advantage right after this, so this negotiation makes even less sense in the long run.
So what do you say?
No.
Considering the last deal Kratos made with a god went profoundly bad for him, I don't blame him for not taking this one despite it.
Yeah, that fucking makes sense. But also, yeah, he didn't even listen to the reasoning at all. Besides, like, well, I don't even think Odin would have told Kratos that he was searching for the answer to all knowledge and shit. I feel like that him saying no was the safest thing he could have done and the best thing for both him and Atreus, which turned out to be true.
its favorable terms, but I would like to hear his reasoning at least, since he himself doesn't want a conflict with the Aesir or Atreus to be involved.
Don't take all day.
About time.
Odin needs Atreus for his plan. Sicking Thor on Kratos would normally make Atreus less likely to trust Odin right after he finished claiming he doesn't want conflict.
You're not from
Yep,
here.
that's very
We
true
got
too.
a tradition called
You would think that having Thor beat down Atreus' father would kind of look fucking bad to Atreus, and be like, if I don't help you, this is what don't happen to me. Why would I want to go help you now,
blood payments. It means I get a piece of you for what you took from my family.
Which also in the long run, you would think, why would Atreus want to even go to Odin in the first place to help him put together the mask, It doesn't make sense.
Take it on.
Badass fight, but Thor never takes a piece of Kratos. The fight
No.
ends with Kratos leaving a permanent axe wound in Thor's stomach and knocking out one of his teeth.
What does he want?
To, pay for the roof. And he invited me to Asgard.
A strange thing to do after he sicked Thor on Atreus' dad, while Atreus still had no idea if he was even alive. I'm more surprised Atreus wasn't trying to put arrows in Odin after the attack.
Yeah, you would think that he would, but he was super calm about it. Maybe he was scared, but also, like, if he was scared, why would he go to Odin in the first place later in the game, Shit.
Why were you searching for Tyr?
If I told you I was looking for him, you would have said not to.
So you hid the truth.
How exactly would Kratos fail to notice his son traveling all over Midgard looking for Tyr? Must have been some awfully long times where he was gone after saying he was using the bushes.
What is this like?
True.
Where are we?
Somewhere only giants were meant to see. These shrines tell their stories to the world. But it turns out the real stories, the secret stories, those they kept here, inside.
The Jotnar shrines from the last game that tell of their history are just the first layer. Only Jotnar can truly open them to see the prophecies they contain. But the question I have is why? What purpose does it serve to build shrines that contain the prophecies of the Jotun, but build them outside of Jotunheim and make it only so Jotuns can open them?
But
Well, Jotuns weren't in Jotunheim fully until after they were forced out of Midgard. So, and other realms. It makes sense why they would have shrines that they can visit in each of the realms, but then have to abandon them when they have to go back, unless they were put there for Kratos and Atreus to find. But I mean, it's a lot to foresight there.
someone comes along and rescues the moon. And then the moon blocks out the sun.
This is a lot of work one Jotun went through to foretell that this game would have a day-night puzzle mechanic in one realm.
Here's Ragnarok. Do you see who's leading the armies against Odin? That's Tyr. If he's gonna be around at Ragnarok, that means he's gotta be alive.
Previously, the
Even at the end of the game, Tyr doesn't even do shit. Granted, it was Odin to begin with, but Tyr was locked up the whole time. It was Atreus and Kratos that started Ragnarok.
Jotun prophecies used art that resembled Kratos enough that you couldn't confuse it for anyone else. Now they use a generic figure that could be anyone, and Atreus assumes it to be Tyr, even though it will actually be Kratos.
When I was inside one of the shrines,
It does have a spear. That makes sense. That was actually a Kratos, but he doesn't have a helmet, so that
I
doesn't
saw
make
an
sense.
image of Tyr imprisoned, but I couldn't tell where. There are hints inside the other shrines. They mention black smoke and
If you look at this now, he was in a prison, and this is kind of the cell that he was in. This isn't like a wooden door, this is bars, which you find here at the end, like as a side, after Asgard's destroyed, he's in a piece in Helheim. So this is accurate, but the way he read it was wrong. And black smoke could be from the pieces of Asgard smoking into the air. It's a lot of things going going back and looking over the story, you can piece together what they actually mean further in the story.
The Jotuns got that one very wrong. They saw Odin pretending to be Tyr locked up in Svartalheim, but not the actual Tyr who was imprisoned in Niflheim.
I think I get it.
Well, he wasn't initially imprisoned in Niflheim. He
I
was
would tell you all
imprisoned
about the
in
puzzle
Asgard,
design of the
and
game
it
if I had gotten a
collapsed
chance to
into
experience it, but
Niflheim.
as soon as I encountered something
Not
without a
Helheim,
health
I'm
bar
talking
that
about
required me to whack it into the right position, my companion would speak up and give me the solution if the game detected I spent more than 10 seconds thinking about it. The only puzzle the game feels you can handle without it are ironically the worst. I'm speaking of rune arrow puzzles, where you have to make a chain of glowing circles that overlap to light something up, usually for an important health upgrade.
That
Not
one was
once did the bastards want to offer
annoyingly
me
tough.
helpful advice on those. I was halfway through the game before I realized I could shoot the same spot 3 times and make the bubble bigger, since the game neglected to mention that fact.
Here to collect
Yeah.
on something, pal. Think parading a severed head around
Actually, I learned my pick
pick
quickly just by mishap. In the same spot multiple
People
times.
often notice Mimir despite him being on Kratos' back and out of sight. Durin gives him a fine for their actions, but it's actually a bit of subterfuge, since he wrote directions to the mine they're looking for. Odin would have only just placed himself in the mine for his deception, so Durin should be unaware of it. Kratos and Atreus take a train up the mountain, but despite the steepness of the slope, they were never affected by the pull of gravity, sitting perfectly upright in their seats despite the 110-degree angle they were on.
Okay, we need to go left.
This thing was annoying trying to put it in the same spot because they would
I meant my
purposely.
left.
You pointed
would
in
be
that
wrong.
direction and you are facing the same direction as him. Your left is his left.
Oh, come on. You can jump that.
Yep,
Your knees
that's very
aren't that
true.
bad.
Kratos doesn't even have a jump button anymore, kid. His old double jump would have blown your mind. You could just lift the beam off the door
True.
instead of ripping the entire door down.
Yeah, I saw that was dumb. He could have lifted the beam. I literally made mention of that in my playthrough. I was like, why did he not pull the bar off? That doesn't make fucking sense. That he would pull the whole fucking door down.
They find Tyr locked up inside the mines, but it's revealed much later this is actually Odin disguised as Tyr. Odin may have known Atreus was looking for Tyr, but he had no way of knowing they would come to Svartalheim to find him. They were only pointed in this direction by a Jotun shrine that only Atreus could access and Odin knew nothing of. Furthermore, Odin locked down realm travel. The only reason they could reach Svartalheim was due to the hack Sindri and Brock came up with, which Odin was also unaware of.
But if you want me to follow you to war, or worse yet, lead you to it, then kill me now. My fight is gone.
Tyr has been playing a lot of The Last of Us 2 during his imprisonment, absorbing its message.
Yeah.
After bringing Tyr back to Sindri's house and being disappointed that he's a pacifist, Atreus decides now would be the best time to sneak away and try to convince Freya to join them, meaning you take control of Atreus for a few parts of the game. He's not terrible to play, just not as satisfying as Kratos. More limited and just reminds you of the myriad of Sony games where you play as someone with a bow.
How about I suggest an alternative?
Yeah, there's a bunch
Something
of
much less
Sony
risky.
games that you play as somebody with a bow, right? Like The Last of Us. That you have a bow or don't you? I've never played Last of Us 2. And then Horizon Zero Dawn. Then Forbidden West. Games I haven't played. Probably will play at some. Probably other games I don't know much about.
Risky, but maybe could give you some answers.
What are you talking about?
A certain old friend you haven't seen in a while. A very giant friend.
Jormungandr? Did you find him?
Jormungandr is in the exact same place they met him last time. Not sure why Atreus thought it was missing.
Iron.
He was encased in ice.
What is that?
And he was probably laying
What is
low for
that?
the past 3 years.
I don't
so it
even know
makes
what
sense.
Atreus asked Jormungandr, or why Sindri suggested they come see it. All they get is the word ironwood out of it, and then it's off to see Freya because this was a big flop. I'd love to know how Freya saw the mistletoe arrowhead that killed Baldur, that Atreus tucked into his shirt just so she wouldn't see it.
Leave this place. Go and do not return.
Yeah. How did she sense
Go
that?
before I change my mind.
Meeting Jormungandr and then Freya has produced 0 results, and Atreus wonders why his dad doesn't trust him.
There was an accident at the forge. Brock died. I couldn't accept it. I went to the Lake of Souls in Alfheim to steal him back. Legions of souls tried to stop me. I can still feel them crawling all over my skin. Thing is, I could only get 3 of his 4 soul parts back.
Maybe that's why he's a clean freak. For the whole feeling souls clawing at him, he probably feels disgusting all the time.
You can just bring the dead back to life here by traveling to the Lake of Souls and finding their soul parts, which is knowledge that seriously undermines a key part of the plot.
Where have you been?
key?
Kratos is still falling for that even after learning Atreus has been up to things behind his back.
Oh, where are we going?
Alfheim, home of the elves.
Alfheim? You hate Alfheim. Why would we move there?
Who there? Oh, we are seeking information.
The Shrine of Groa, young one. Your father tells me you found it there.
Kratos only humored Atreus by helping him find Tyr. Now he's the one suggesting they go check the Jotnar Shrine of Groa they found in Alfheim for more prophecy clues.
My goodness, what a strapping physique. Capable of an astounding variety of acts of violence, I imagine.
What is happening?
I'm down for the more serious attempt at character development in the series, but the addition of funny talking animals concerned me.
Anyway...
Yeah, it's not really funny talking. Barataska is like a big part of Norse mythology, so it makes sense that he would be part of the game. Granted, a lot of the developers were fighting for him not to be in the game, but they added him in anyways, because somebody fought for it. Forget who, but they fought for the Barataska to be in the game. They were initially not going to have him part of it.
Now that I've polished off all this resin for you, would you like the seed back?
How exactly did you polish the seed in your mouth while talking normally until now? There's a few too many reused areas in the sequel. Retreading old levels with a few minor changes is the realm of Dilsheim.
The mythical sanctuary for giants. Curious.
So it's in Jotunheim?
I know some giants thought so, but Ironwood isn't anywhere, lad. It's a concept, a metaphorical paradise.
I just figured that one.
You live in a world with 9 mystical realms of reality, and you think a paradise existing in the most mysterious one is unlikely.
She lied.
Groa lied. Of course she did. Odin's working off a
Makes sense why
Tyr, learning that Groa's prophecy of Ragnarok destroying the 9 realms was a lie, and that only Asgard would be destroyed and Odin killed, should alter whatever plans he's been working on to avert it, but he does nothing with his new information. If Ragnarok only results in the destruction of Asgard, why are all the realms currently affected some way by Fimbulwinter? What even is Fimbulwinter now if Ragnarok is just a big monster blowing up Asgard? After fighting with his dad over his prophecy again, Atreus goes to sleep and wakes up in Ironwood inside Jotunheim. There had to be a better way of getting here than just falling asleep and waking up where he needed to be for the plot. Odin's ability to perceive the future can be rather hit or miss. Angrboda was able to predict her first meeting with Atreus right down to him pointing a knife at her. But when she shows him the reproduction of the mural he and his father saw at the end of the last game, it shows Kratos dying in Atreus' arms, which ends up being the completely wrong person, and sets up the next arc of Atreus' story in a falsehood. Furries have forever ruined the appeal of turning into a wolf.
That cannot be my future.
Yeah, true. Oh, and then Thor here, right? This would be Thor. Was that supposed to be Kratos? I think that's supposed to be Kratos and that's supposed to be Odin. But also, yeah, the portrayal is wrong.
It says I serve
But
Odin
also
and
maybe
my
they
father
changed
died.
their fate.
Just a guess, but I don't think Kratos has told Atreus all the stories of his past. Dying isn't a big deal for him, but the game wants you to take this death prophecy very seriously, even though he was fated to die in the first game and did, fated to die in the second game as well and did, and then died again in the third game for good measure.
Yeah, he's known for coming back.
Forget the future. Forget Loki.
Forget about your father's impending death and you serving Odin, and help me do chores for the next hour.
I hated this part. This part took so long. This was the worst part, like Atreus part to play. It was aggravatingly long. And ultimately pointless. I mean, you got good upgrade materials for his bows. But that was about it.
Loki, meet Yala.
The rest of Atreus' time in Ironwood is spent doing their best to emulate an episode of Avatar: The Last Airbender. An odd influence for a God of War game, to be sure.
Let's grab it.
Who's it for?
Wolves gotta eat, don't they?
I'm starting to think Jotuns are the worst kind of vegan. The ones who place their pets on a vegan diet.
These are the giants. They had a choice. They could stay in Jotunheim, waiting for Odin to find a way in to slaughter them. Or they could hide. My father helped whisper their souls into these.
They sure showed Odin, killing themselves and running away.
Nobody believed this place was real. They're gonna be so surprised.
Loki, You can't tell anyone about Ironwood, not even your father.
There isn't a good reason why Atreus can't tell Kratos about the Ironwood. It's not like he's going to tell Odin about it. And what would Odin even do with it? It's just a forest with 2 giants living in it.
About damn time.
Given how big Angrboda's grandmother is, there is no way they could have missed her dragging the wolf away. It's either altruistic or one hell of a prank to place the soul of a giant into a snake. The fact that some giants remain normal human height and some grow as large as a mountain must have made for an interesting society. We only deal with the 6-foot dilemma. Can't imagine what it's like when someone expects you to be at least 12 stories tall. You really can sleep your way to and from Jotunheim. They had to go on an entire quest to get here in the last game.
That they did.
What were you thinking?
I wanted to visit Fenrir.
For 2 days.
Do not lie to me again!
Does time pass that fast in Jotunheim? A few hours there was 2 days in Midgard. None of the other realms work that way. Angrboda is supposed to be the same age as Atreus, but I don't see how that can be or stay that way given the time flow difference.
That's very true, yeah.
Maybe. For the moment. You are more
Well, maybe the time will change because of the way he traveled to Jotunheim.
Lady, if you knew how many times he's climbed out of the underworld after dying, you'd have given up on killing him years ago.
That's very true, yeah. You've fought his way back.
Come on then.
You had a way around Odin's curse this whole time.
By turning into a bird, Freya can bypass Odin's curse and stay in Vanaheim. Yet another rule they decided was too limiting for them. I find it odd that Freyr keeps an empty sword scabbard on his back just for one scene toward the end of the game. It makes no sense for him to wear it since he lost Ingrid centuries ago. The female dwarf that cuts Brock down from the tribe is actually his old friend he came here with them to see. And not once during the standoff did she speak up and mention that fact. The Yggdrasil route.
Yeah, she didn't mention that either. Like, why? You would think that she would be like, oh, they're friends.
Its binding Freya's curse are protected by Nidhogg, and for the first time in the Norse saga, I can take a sin off for a great boss fight.
Yeah, this fight was badass. It was tough. I had a tough time with it. Mostly because I did not have a resurrection stone.
Something the previous game was seriously lacking in.
Yeah, the last game didn't have really good boss. Like, they didn't have a big creature fight the last game, besides the dragon, and even the dragon wasn't that crazy of a fight. You were just throwing shit in its mouth. But Nidhogg, you were actually attacking it.
Wait. Skull and Hati are in Vanaheim?
We learned the giants rescued them from Odin and brought them here.
If the sun and moon only set due to Skull and Hati chasing them and they are currently only in Vanaheim, how does sunset and sunrise work in the other realms? Like her brother.
That's true. Because when Skull and Hati have to be able to change the time in all realms. That's how the myth goes. That's how time changes, is them chasing the sun and moon.
Freya is wearing an extra scabbard on her back for when she reclaims a sword she left here after her marriage to Odin, who goes out wearing 2 scabbards but only carries 1 sword.
Look, I was only thinking about going to Odin, but I swear it's for a good reason.
There is no good reason to go to Odin.
He'll only cloud your mind.
With Tyr actually being Odin, you'd think this is what he would have been trying to convince Atreus to do while disguised. But Atreus came to the...
It would be, but it also makes sense that he wasn't, because then he would tip them off to being not Tyr. Because why would Tyr be trying to push Atreus to go when Tyr trying to prevent war, and that would do nothing but cause a war, because Kratos would hunt Odin down to get Atreus back.
This conclusion only after seeing the prophecy of his father's death and himself serving Odin. Odin didn't seem to have a plan in place for getting Atreus to come to him.
No, he didn't.
I gotta stop something bad from happening.
Probably...
Also said prophecy foretold Atreus would serve Odin. By making one part of the prophecy come true, you aren't somehow negating the other. There's also the little problem that Atreus has no way to Asgard, so he threw a fit and runs away with no plan on how to accomplish his goal.
That's very true too.
There are lines you know exist only because of popular memes from the last game. Atreus didn't have to walk around the branches of the Erd tree like normal after traveling through a Mystic Gate. There's also no Mystic Gate behind him to come out where he landed. One tiny fire that will go out in minutes is enough to warm up and save the life of the turtle that serves as Freya's house. Why did she abandon it to sleep out in the cold to begin with? Just because she was sad and angry doesn't mean she had to be cold and miserable.
Yeah, the way they portrayed Freya and how, like, she left that turtle for 3 years. You would also think he would be dead, because Fimbulwither was just freezing. Like, not on the verge of dying, but be dead already. It's been 3 years. Some pieces of the narrative doesn't make sense. And also, they had the crows show up here, but Odin shouldn't have been able to get into Sanctuary Grove. Like, Freya put up a protection spell around the Sanctuary Grove so Odin could come in. So it would make sense that his crows would have been able to get to Atreus.
Due to Atreus' lack of planning, it's up to the plot to provide him with a way to Asgard with Odin's ravens showing up, just like when the plot provided him an easy way to Ironwood. This current sure is moving Atreus fast for what is actually
Atreus
a placid and still lake once you get out of it.
I'm gonna go climb that wall now.
In the span of 3 short years, Atreus went from needing to cling to his father's back when climbing to a world champion free climber.
What part of the enormous wall made you think, oh,
Heimdall's such an
visitors
asshole.
must be
Do they teach that eating an apple makes for asshole behavior in creative writing classes or something?
Yes, I'm going to drop you.
Apparently so.
Atreus managed to grab Heimdall's arm before falling shouldn't have been possible given Heimdall's power. Atreus can't even touch him later when they fight, even when Heimdall isn't looking.
You just met me.
And I can already see you are eager to prove yourself. Way too eager. Probably due to an overshadowing father figure you can never live up to.
Heimdall's power means he perceives everything about a person. His is a power that will only seem to work when the plot needs it to work.
That's true too.
Whoa. Are these all Aesir gods?
What? You think all Aesir are gods?
Well, that seemed like the most straightforward assumption. If not all Aesir are gods, how does your godhood work?
That's very
is
true.
it anything like the Yognar, where not all of them are giants?
Helmets!
How do some of them become gods with godlike powers?
I thought we were going to Odin!
You see, the thing is, you move not treacherous intent. So I am not letting you anywhere near the Allfather.
So first Heimdall pulled Atreus up the wall instead of dropping him, only to sick Einherjar on him and then attack him himself after he brought him into the Great Hall where Odin resides.
The boy is false, Allfather.
This young man, who is my guest...
If Atreus is your guest, why did you drop him outside the wall,
That's
forcing
very
him to
true,
climb it just to reach you? With Heimdall being able to see the truth of a person, he should be able to perceive that Odin is a manipulator who uses everyone, including Heimdall himself. Yet Odin is the only person he trusts and respects, blindly even.
Which is dumb
don't
as
think
well.
we should talk about my father.
Not well, huh? Can't blame him. Between my ex-wife and my disgruntled former employee, he's not exactly getting an unbiased view.
Odin, knowing that Freya is with Kratos and Mimir, should set off alarm bells. This isn't some little fact that would be easy to go unnoticed, as Freya was previously trying to kill Kratos.
Yeah, it would be something you would be worried about, like two people capable of potentially killing you working together. That's like a bad scenario given like it's like adding water to an oil fire. Like, it's not gonna end up well, and it's gonna blow up in your face. Him not doing anything until like pretty much the end of the game doesn't make sense. And him being as tier, like you would think he'd be pushing nonstop to stop them from going to Odin or like starting a war. But he does. He pushes for them to start a war the whole time. It doesn't make sense. Granted, it would be a good way for Odin to kill everyone who is trying to go against him in a war. But also, like, when you think that as him transformed in Tyr, he would kill them in their sleep? Like, he literally had the 5 people that were trying to go against him in one place with him. You would think he would kill them all in one go while they're all sleeping. Like, they wouldn't be able to do anything. But he doesn't.
Loki, you're lucky my offer still stands after you went and sprung Tyr.
Odin admits the very first thing he ever told Atreus was a lie, but Atreus will still start to trust him knowing that.
Your brother. Really? I had no idea.
Uh-huh. And now it's yours.
Gods sure are forgiving up here in the north compared to their Greek cousins. Thrud becomes best friends with Atreus despite him killing her brothers and her uncle without so much as an apology.
You know what drives me? What I really want? I want answers. Same as you. See, mortals have it easy. When they push up against life's big questions, they can look to us. To give them meaning, divine comfort. We both know that's a sham. But when we have questions, why are we here? To give meaning to mortals while living without it ourselves? No.
While I love the idea that Odin's problem is that he's a god having an existential crisis over purpose and meaning, I find that his solution being a reference to a Jim Carrey comedy from the 90s that itself only referenced Loki in passing to be a massive disappointment.
Can we just look inside?
I wouldn't recommend that.
Yeah, and obviously...
Mimir stated in the last game that Odin clawed out his own eye after he tricked him into drinking from a well laced with hallucinogenic mushrooms. Now he lost it from staring into the rift without the mask.
I must have missed that.
Odin never knew that part
game.
of Atreus' godhood included the power to speak any language, so how did he figure Atreus could translate the runes on the mask for him?
Yeah, how did he know?
Earth
A lot of, again, like I said, I feel like a lot of the plot that surrounds Atreus is protected by the plot. Like they just kind of... Granted, the narrative is really good, but a lot of the narrative they kind of just handed out and hoped you didn't catch the problems involved in that. Like you would think you would like catch it. You'd be like, oh shit, this doesn't make sense. Why is it like this? But nope, you don't.
Gideon Spark. And a field of battles never fought.
A lot of
Why
people
would the
don't question
mask,
it.
which is broken into 3 pieces, have runes leading to where the other broken pieces can be found carved into it? I assume the mask was created whole and then shattered somehow, but it already included a poem where the broken pieces would end up. And for a mask that isn't from the 9 realms, why would its pieces be found here?
That's very
also,
true.
figuring out the riddles on the mask seems unnecessary. The mask glows when pointed in the direction of one of its pieces. They could just try each realm until they got a signal, then follow it.
That's very true, they could have.
Listen, Modi had some problems, but he was my son. And the only reason you aren't mush right now is because of that broken piece of wood.
You're the one that beat him to near death, then sent him back to Midgard for no reason after
That's very true. He did pretty much beat him to near death. Like he could have died from his injuries.
He had already been killed. Atreus tricks Thor into trying Surtur's trials while he checks out Surtur's shrine. This is about as close as Atreus ever comes to being a god of tricks and deceit.
True. Like even when he went to Odin potentially as a spy, but he doesn't really trick anybody at all. Like being the god of deceit and trickery, like a lot of what he does isn't trickery or deceit, and even his abilities don't even gear toward that. Like you would think he'd be able to he can shapeshift, yeah, but only into animals. You'd think he'd shapeshift into other forms like Odin does.
Small world of the masterpiece just happened to be right next to the trial area and Surtur's shrine. And the world gets smaller, because Angrboda is here to check the shrine for soul marbles as well.
They even became friends. Good friends.
Are they?
Yeah, I think they are.
You've got to use your imagination when it comes to Jotnar's Norse Hub videos.
We can read it all.
But you can't translate.
Yes, the Norse Hub.
Atreus translated the other phrase in the mask in seconds. Now it requires days to translate the next section. Single take transitions are hard enough to do when you have only one character to focus on. Spread between 2 people in 2 different locations means you end up with these weird scenes where Loki puts down his knife on a table and Kratos picks up an identical knife from an identical table on his end.
They are the fates of these lands, are they not? I would know what they know.
You don't need witches who weave fate to tell you that Atreus is in Asgard.
That's very true.
Once
you
the
don't.
wolves have the scent of the Norns, we'll just need to follow their lead.
The Norns reside under a lake. No wolf is sniffing out their trail. And a trail would imply they're out there walking around sometime.
Their fur is matted. When did you last brush them?
They are wolves.
And matted fur leads to disease. Take care of them and they'll take care of you.
Says the lady who left her turtle house to freeze.
Yeah, true. Yeah. Fuck it out. For roast. Yeah, she left her turtle to die, but it's fucking shaming Kratos for not brushing out his wolf's fur.
Death can have me when it earns me.
Kratos would make a fine presidential candidate for the Libertarian Party. The wolves lead them to 2 different illusory walls that contain nothing. But why were there illusory walls to nothing to begin with? According to Freya, this is the work of the Norns, who presumably like to leave scent trails leading to fake walls before finally allowing you to find them.
Kratos, ghost of Sparta, bane of Olympus.
I don't like the Norns. They're assholes too.
Of fate, cruel slaughter.
Imagine being the warrior the Norns sent out to fight Kratos, and you hear them listing all of Kratos' titles. How many times does this make someone has used an illusion like this against Kratos, and it never ever works? Honestly, I'm
True.
not sure why the Norns are even screwing with them like this. They're not at all hostile. They just want to troll. It's a good thing Atreus
they are
isn't here to
trolls.
meet the Kelpie. If you know, you know.
You come to us.
But yeah, doesn't Loki fuck a Kelpie in the mythology? Like, isn't that how one of his children are born? Is he fucks Kelpie?
Hideous archetypes, seeking freedom from
Or
your
does he
scripts.
get fucked by a Kelpie?
As if knowing your lines would
I
grant you
don't
the
remember.
power to rewrite them.
Speak plain.
Normally I despise when developers try to be meta, but I enjoy everything about the depiction of the Norns as oracles who are reading the game script and state that you can only foresee the outcome of simple characters and their actions.
There is no grand design, no script, only the choices you make. That your choices are so predictable merely make us seem prescient.
This contradicts God of War 2, where the Sisters of Fate did have that power, and this is the same world.
And because you kill gods.
But what Kratos did, it was not out of hate.
Should I bring him a crown then? He still slays gods, but now he's sad about it?
The game is sinning itself. I approve.
Yeah, it is.
Because your choices never change, you will learn that Heimdall intends to kill your son in Asgard, and you will do what you do best. And then Ragnarok.
The skies burn, the curtains fall. Exunt omni.
Heimdall.
He only learns that from you, just now. Had you not told him Heimdall intends to kill Atreus, none of that other stuff would happen.
I mean, it would probably happen. He would eventually find out about it. Or, like, they would cross paths at some point. Like, it would happen.
Enjoyed your story, Kratos. Pity it has to end so soon.
Well, on that part, they're wrong. This is only the halfway point, and the game is left open for future sequels.
Yeah, which will probably be in
That's the noose, brother.
Egypt, most
the
likely.
one Odin hanged himself with.
That was a really skinny branch for Odin to hang himself from. The plan to beat Heimdall is to overwhelm his senses by creating a spear that can turn into more spears, which I don't see being a great difference from Atreus shooting a lot of arrows at him earlier to no avail. Atreus can even
That's
shoot
also
magic
true,
arrows that
yeah.
split into three, summon flocks of spirit animals, and it did nothing. But a handful of spears that go pop can turn the tide on Heimdall. Since Odin knows Kratos is planning to kill Heimdall, and the exact method he's going to use, he could give Heimdall some warning about it. Gjallarhorn is important enough that at least taking it away from Heimdall for safekeeping would be a smart move. I will take a sin off for this being the first God of War game where I didn't ignore all the weapons for just one or two. Granted, there's only 3, but a lot more identity and usefulness was put into them than in the past games.
Very true. These weapons have a lot of use to them. They're, like, really awesome.
You lasted so long, but you just couldn't resist making a boy joke.
It's the key to peace in our age, to break free from all this fate and prophecy.
My son is not your key.
Oh God, do they not have metaphor in your homeland? Or rather, did they?
I wonder just how much Hades from Disney's Hercules inspired Odin in this game.
Yeah, Hades is...
Of godhood.
Yeah, honestly, Odin comes off as Hades from the Hercules movies. Like, he has his angry moments, but also he's very calm and, like, manipulatively deceptive.
In your lifetimes, has anyone ever worshipped you? Ever prayed to you?
Yes, all the Spartans. All the Spartans praised Kratos.
He was pretty well loved by the Spartans, I recall. The first game even ended with Gaia narrating about how Kratos would be worshipped by every person who went to war for all time. Kratos only puts out one candle whenever he sleeps and leaves the rest burning. These two were punching identical walls, huh? Really beginning to stretch for that one take.
When it blinded me,
really.
I thought it was over, that I'd never see inside again. And then I found this. And I knew that it would finally let me see the answers.
You just knew? Just up and found a broken wooden mask and realized, yep, this is what I need to stare into a crack in reality. The writing really breaks down when it comes to the plot MacGuffin.
It really does.
I know where I go when I go.
So much of the plot is protected by the plot.
Ragnarok cannot be the end. I need to know there's something more than this.
Well, I don't know about all gods, but Athena died and turned into some kind of spirit. Kratos even died as a god and he just fell into Hades like everyone else. Kratos could tell Odin of this and clear up this existential crisis of his.
The writing on here talks about a cold breath.
Granted, you don't learn how the gods come back to life from death.
Gotta be Helheim.
Again, why would there be writing on the mask about the locations of the broken pieces of itself? The only way this would make sense if the mask was created, directions and...
The gods die, but, like, there's no information about where they go when they die, whether it's Helheim or Elfheim in the Well of Souls. Like, you don't learn about where the gods go when they die. These gods do die. Agni and Modi died. You don't know where they go. You don't learn that they went into the Well of Souls or Helheim. If they went into the Well of Souls, they were brought back.
Inscribed onto it, then intentionally broken and hidden just for this game of scavenger hunt across the realms.
Whoa, 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 hold up. You don't want to walk into the blistering cold of Helheim without this. Every Lao should keep you nice and toasty.
Well, at least they remembered that bit of the last game, but they're still retconning it because Mimir stated not even Odin could survive the cold of Helheim.
Maybe he's locked up for a good reason.
I can feel what he's feeling. It's a giant thing. Look, he just wants to be free.
I'm sure everything that's locked up wants to be free, including those who are incredibly dangerous and guilty. Atreus picked the wrong ice realm to explore, but even though the third piece isn't in Helheim, the mask still glowed and led him to a dead end for no explainable reason.
Absolute, unqualified,
Unless Garm was from Niflheim.
You know that thing tears holes between realms, right?
Why were they not warned about Garm if they were going to be searching in the same area as him for the mask?
I think I want to go home now.
Okay, if that's what you want. I meant it when I said you're not a prisoner here. It's your choice. Go, clear your mind. I know you'll be back.
As much as I like the idea that Odin is confident enough with his manipulation that he would let Atreus leave, I have to wonder what makes him so sure that Atreus would return to finish the mask later.
That's very true.
When you do decide you're ready to continue our work here, Hugin will be waiting for you in your old home.
Atreus thinks nothing of Odin, knowing that he isn't returning to the cabin in the Wildwoods, referring to it as his old home.
And I set him free. I thought that if...
Garm! Great bleeding fuck, lad, you feed Garm!
If there's one aspect of the game that disappoints me, it's how it shies away from the more weird elements in Norse mythology. Assassin's Creed Valhalla, a lesser game in every way that matters, was willing to depict Fenrir as the messed up wolf child of Loki and Angrboda, whereas here, Atreus just places the soul of his dead pet wolf Fenrir into Garm.
It's a dead end.
True.
He's been faffing around with that since before I knew him.
You're wrong, Mimir. This mask is no fraud. The giants didn't make it, and only a few of them ever glimpsed it in their visions.
Why would Tyr persuade them that the mask is really important to Odin? Shouldn't he want them to think the mask is nothing special? Odin had Heimdall steal the moon in Vanaheim and place it into a box because Ragnarok begins once Skull and Hati catch it. But then they just left the box in Vanaheim under light guard instead of bringing it to Asgard. As Tyr, Odin even knew these two were headed to Vanaheim to help Freya and Freyr, but once again did nothing with his inside information. The spears don't end up mattering that much against Heimdall. Kratos just starts punching faster after surprising Heimdall by bursting one of the spears into wind. And after that first hit, he can no longer effortlessly dodge your attacks. For someone who's obsessed with stopping Ragnarok, Odin sure didn't use the information that Kratos would kill Heimdall and take the horn that sounded very seriously, since he didn't do anything to avoid Heimdall being killed. They let Freyr keep his flying boat on him after taking him captive.
A lot of what occurs, again, is protected by the plot. Still one of the best narratives, but a lot of it is retconned to happen specifically without any oh, this doesn't make sense. They let things not make sense to happen. Kind of sucks. This, it would be better if a lot of the things didn't just fall into place to make it happen, you know?
This escape was planned on that still being with him. All these wyverns that the archers and Kratos with his spear are too slow to hit, and Birgir can just jump out of a boat and nail one of them with his sword, which causes it to ram into the other. Birgir may be able to roll out of fall damage, but Kratos can block it with his shield. How Atreus survived the fall is a mystery though.
Yeah, honestly, it doesn't talk about how Atreus survived that fall at all. You'd think he would have died from that.
You can't let Odin have it.
Odin is standing there listening on this plan and will not only take no precautions, but will leave the completed mask in Atreus' hand to deal with Siv accusing Atreus of killing Heimdall. Feeding Fenrir is going to be hell now.
How'd you find me?
Yeah, he's gonna be so hungry. That's because he's in Garm's body, he doesn't have to eat, but I highly doubt that. He'd have to eat a whole realm's worth of animals to satiate his hunger for a day.
Loki? This is my marble.
Tossing Atreus a marble with Loki's name on it doesn't explain how you knew where his house was.
So, I figured out what went wrong. I mistranslated
Probably because of her visions.
Did you know?
I thought it said beyond the cry of cold breath, but
It actually reads the cry of first breath.
It took you that long to figure out that the other icy realm mentioned on the mask might be Niflheim?
Weapons aren't allowed inside. We'll have to check them.
No weapons in the mead hall is an odd rule for a tavern that serves only Inyar and Aesir gods, one of which is immortal, and the other have already died and only come back after dying again.
Agree.
Yeah, having no weapons doesn't make sense in that. And Thor still has his hammer, so that doesn't make sense either.
But they said you had to turn in your weapons when entering the mead hall.
Yeah,
Quiet,
exactly.
boy.
My name is...
I thought this scene would have gone down between Atreus and his dad. Doesn't change anything though. During the brawl, Atreus is somehow pushing the big Inyar back with his feet, even though he's being held off the ground by him. I appreciate the amount of effort they put into humanizing the gods of the Norse mythology. Instead of making them into a list of bosses you have to check off, you end up not wanting to kill them.
Yeah, it does fit into the theme of the game about like how your enemies are actually people and they have their own problems and their own lives to deal with, and just killing them doesn't, shouldn't be as easy as it should be, like morally wise. Compared to where Kratos would kill innocents and gods and whatever without a care. Now he's opening his heart, and he even goes into later in at the scene of Ragnarok where Kratos tells Atreus to open his heart. That's what makes him special, is he can feel everyone's pain and suffering, and he can feel for them, but if the need arises, is you still have to kill the enemy if there don't be a problem. But they definitely did a good job humanizing all the bosses. Besides the berserkers, the berserkers are the only ones that they have a story, but their story just puts them as a bunch of assholes anyways. So you check them off.
Which does fit the theme of the game. Unlike the previous game where Baldur, Magni, and Modi never garnered sympathy, and were just better acted assholes than the ones from the Greek pantheon. There's more writing on this new chunk of mask, but whatever it says is unimportant. Odin leaves the completed mask, his obsession for who knows how long, in Atreus' hand while he speaks with the Valkyrie about Heimdall's death, and he knows that Atreus and his party are after the mask.
Except begging your pardon, you don't have a way into Asgard.
They got the big horn, don't they?
Oh, so you expect them to sneak into Asgard blowing a horn that sounds across all the realms?
Am I the only one that recalls that Atreus is a giant wolf that rips holes between the realms? You could use Fenrir to reach Asgard.
They don't.
This is my purpose.
Doesn't think about it.
One last time, I will pick up my spear and I will lead us to Asgard.
Odin playing Tyr as a pacifist comes back to haunt him, because this might have tricked him had he not. What was the actual plan Odin was going to spring on them? His way to Asgard is by ravens, which would give away his identity. And raven travel has to be by consent as stated earlier. If he was only going to take the mask back with him after getting his hands on it, he would still be at a loss since he needs Atreus to wear it. A better option would be to bring Thor, Valkyries, and every Inyar he can to Sindri's house and kill all of them except Atreus.
Hey!
Yep, very true.
I'm talking to you! You never shut up!
The reveal that Tyr was Odin all along is only a surprise because Odin never made use of his role as an imposter outside of this one moment where he attempted to trick them and take the completed mask back. Everything that played out in the game would have happened regardless had he not disguised himself as Tyr. I don't even know what his goal was while doing this. The only thing he accomplished with his disguise was encourage Atreus and Kratos to bring about Ragnarok.
Please, you have to save him.
Maybe the last part of the mask said something about Ragnarok, but even then he wouldn't know. So I don't understand the purpose of him portraying himself as Tyr the whole time.
Atreus, now would be an excellent time for you to use that Jotun magic that lets you place a person's soul into an object like you did with Fenrir.
Very true.
Because Brock is missing part of his soul and will receive no afterlife if he dies. The series finally succeeded in making someone's death a sad and memorable thing. Is there anything stopping Odin from warping back to Sindri's house with Thor and other Aesir to take the mask and horn back? Even if they cleared out his raven from the broom closet, he still knows this location.
Yeah, but I think he needs his raven.
We can bring Brock back. Sindri did it once. Maybe we could figure out a way to do it again.
You never thought to ask that question when you were agonizing over your father's death prophecy?
Yeah, true. He doesn't.
My home. My secrets. My treasures. And you just kept taking. And now what have I got?
They did really well with Sindri's character.
Moments like this remind me that I do in fact have empathy, and I hate that.
God, yeah,
This scene also
these
marks
scenes
the
made
high
me so
watermark of the
sad
game,
with Sindri.
because the rest feels incredibly rushed from here on. First, Kratos decides that now is the time to go to war, even though he just gave the mask and horn to Freya and Freyr and left saying he and Atreus were done. But seeing Sindri grieve has changed his mind and makes him return to being the god of war with his son by his side. Then they manage to unite the rest of the realms off-screen to attack Asgard just like that. For a game so long, where it had time to go over so many parts in detail, it then speedruns its way through the event the game is named after.
It kind of does, yeah.
Why won't you help
Moves
us?
it really fast.
I don't want to.
Elaborate.
We'll die.
Right. Because you've got so much to live for.
Atreus is making himself a lot less likable right now. He spent most of this game trying to defy a prophecy laid out by the giants concerning his father's death, but expects Surtur to go along with a prophecy that will also end up killing him and his wife.
True.
Luckily for them, Kratos' Blades of Chaos can also transform Surtur into a Ragnarok without also sacrificing his love Sinmara. You never see Sinmara, so this act doesn't mean much. She's only brought up to blindly grasp at emotions and the theme of not letting someone you love die due to prophecy. Those blades have been more useful in the Nine Realms than they ever were in the land they were forged in. It would have made a lot more sense for Odin to send his Valkyries to Sindri's house earlier after he failed to get the mask back than to send them to the spark of the world to stop them from creating Ragnarok. Hildisvini, who took Mimir to Helheim with him to get Hel on their side for the battle, returned and left Mimir stuck on a gateway unprotected, with no idea if they would return by this gate.
That's very true too. That was kind of dumb.
Atreus, yours is to the left.
I don't see you getting much rest in a cold-ass tent that isn't near a fire. There's an enclosed chamber with a forge fire right behind you.
Very true too.
We'll tell you a story, and he called for death to come to him. And when death arrived...
Father, tell me a story that seems to imply your impending death so I can sleep soundly. Kratos giving a speech is the last thing I ever expected. Sometimes subverting...
I'm so mad that my stream got muted from this. Like, this part of my stream got muted, and then a little bit afterwards because of the music in the background. What the fuck? Every other part of the game, the game music was fine. But this game music? Nah. Too much. Mute that part of your stream. Now, that part of the video is muted on YouTube too. Just because when I downloaded the stream, and I was like, I don't have a lot, I would have fought it if I was bigger on the platform. I wasn't big on the platform. I'm not big on Twitch. Now we'll try and fight it. So I was like, alright, whatever. I'll leave it as it is.
Expectations can go a step too far. In the Norse mythos, Heimdall was the herald of Ragnarok and carried Gjallarhorn so he could sound it as a warning to the Aesir that Ragnarok had begun. Here, the horn actually enables Ragnarok by opening all the realm travel gates. There was no good reason for Heimdall to carry it around on him, since he would never blow it. With the realm towers in Muspelheim and Nibelheim destroyed by dwarven weapons, Ragnarok shouldn't be able to reach Asgard. But he does. Not that he accomplishes anything. His part in the game is another of those severely rushed moments that was introduced in the 11th hour, only to serve as background imagery for the fight since Atreus decides not to use him to breach Asgard's wall due to the humans Odin placed in front of it. Reminds me of another time this series set up an apocalyptic assault on the home of the gods using titans that also went nowhere and was just window dressing. For some reason, Sindri has an off switch for the dwarven laser guns.
Yeah.
Why would he do that?
Granted, he probably got that from Durlin. Was it Durlin? He was the one making it. It would make sense he would put a failsafe in the turrets themselves because he knows Kratos and Atreus might start Ragnarok. It would make sense that there would be a failsafe.
And how am I supposed to believe you? Because he's right.
Sif has hated Atreus since she first met him due to his part in Magni and Modi's death. But now, when he's part of the army besieging Asgard, she's...
Yeah, she switches sides way too quick. And granted, Thor probably don't get killed. Well, he does die by Odin's hands. But she probably thinks that Thor would die because Odin would throw Thor in front of Kratos as like a potential deterrent. But then Odin kills Thor for going to start to attack him. So it makes sense that she would side with Atreus, but the way she sides with him is, unless it's all him trying to fix their family. I don't know.
sides with him
She
against Odin.
switches sides way too
Jormungandr
quickly.
joined the fight and was battling Thor in the distance, which could have been an amazing moment, but then Thor somehow knocks it back in time so it can have a role in the last God of War game. This has to be the single biggest waste of potential
Yeah,
in the series.
honestly,
Odin
they
kills
could have
Thor
done
after
so
he was
much with
defeated by
the
Kratos and was about
Jormungandr
to
and
finally
Thor.
stand up to his father. I can accept that Odin would do that, but he kills Thor by stabbing him with a spear. Kratos did far worse than that in this fight, stabbing him through his stomach with the Blades of Chaos, and even stabbing him with his own spear. Kratos himself has been impaled on a god-killing sword and survived, but Thor couldn't take this.
No. Oh, he probably could have been really weak and couldn't heal from it much.
If this is the same kind of binding spell that Odin put on you, did you need to be in his presence to use it? If so, then it's no better than attacking him directly, because if he already survived hanging himself for days on the tree, a few minutes of choking isn't going to kill him. All of them fell into the rift chamber in a group, but Atreus is alone upon hitting the ground.
But this is your destiny. Champion of the Jotnar. Only he can put on a mask. Only he can gaze into the truth.
But the giants didn't make it.
And where exactly did you learn that bit of information from? That was never foretold in any of the shrines. And why would a Jotun be the only one who can wear the mask? The giants didn't make it, and knew very little about it according to Odin.
No! He breaks that way too easily.
Probably for the best. If it did anything like what it did to Jim Carrey, it would have seriously undermined the tone. Turns out the mural that depicted Kratos dying in Atreus' arms was actually Odin having his soul placed in a marble by Atreus. Hell of an oversight to make with your prophecy. Sindri grabs the marble and smashes it, and while that was definitely cathartic for him, Odin was already dead. That only released his soul from the marble.
How?
It's giant stuff.
Giant stuff, also known as a load of bull. And I was right about Fenrir being able to get to Asgard by tearing holes between realms. They could have snuck right into the chamber where Odin's rift was and used the mask had they wanted. The only mythological battle the game saw fit to use was Freyr fighting and dying to Surtur, not Odin dying to Fenrir or Thor to Jormungandr, only the most inconsequential fight that had zero impact.
Before Ragnarok, you promised to finish it if I...
They changed the mythos a lot.
I fell asleep.
But also they kept to the mythos a lot. Just, you know, switching around for, like, Atreus to be Loki to fucking make sense, but he could have still done some of the same things correctly. They chose not to.
When death arrived, he asked why the old man had called for him. Seeing death before him caused the old man to reconsider his request.
I got a
After
little
moment,
speck. I
he
think
asked
it's
that death help him lift the logs
a
onto
little
his back.
The second part of Kratos' story really doesn't live up to the narrative weight placed on it earlier.
No,
My shrine in Yoda.
it doesn't. She was almost start crying when he was talking about the story.
She didn't want us to know our fate.
Then why did she have you go to that very specific mountain in Jotunheim to spread her ashes? That was her intended purpose, as stated at the end of the last game.
There are other giants out there. And I've got to find them. I think I know where to look, but they're my responsibility.
And where exactly did you get an idea of where to look? At no point was there any information given on that.
No
they left the
information
Nine
at all.
Realms and you don't know anything about the rest of the world. There's no real reason for Atreus to go and find them. They're probably doing
There
just
isn't.
fine. So he's searching for no other reason than to meet them. Atreus wanting to leave right this minute by himself to go find the missing giants feels like the developer is writing him out of the plot to give themselves room for any future game they might want to make. That's a sheer cliff Atreus is
really
jumping
is.
off. Are you sure he's ready to be on his own? The back of Faye's shrine holds a hidden prophecy she made, one where Kratos is depicted as a god people love and worship for acts other than war and violence. I'll let the ending of God of War 1 contradict this.
And from that point forward, throughout the rest of time, whenever men rode forth to battle for good cause or for evil, they did so under the watchful eye of the man who had defeated a god. They were driven forward by Kratos, the mortal who had become the new god of war.
170 sins.
Game of the year winner is
Elden
Elden Ring.
I love Dardigan stuff. I watch it in my free time. Since Thor actually stopped drinking by this point, his forced him to bring the meat as a formality for Kratos and was supposed to actually drink it to show Kratos that they didn't poison it. Chugs it down himself and admonishes Thor for not being funny when he actually comes in. Yeah, okay, true. It'd be a one and done game because it was turned into a franchise. Yep, I commented about that. Death Konami is like well deserved. Yeah. And in fact, it seems like most of them behaved like a mafia boss rather than having the "thou shall not disrespect a holy domain" attitude the Greek pantheon had. Yeah, they were all like, ah, God, go to Odin, the All Father. It sounds like you're really afraid of him. Claimed which will let her fight once again. She did this quickly because time works differently in different realms, while Jotunheim moving time faster in Midgard sense when I really think the only reason why he was gone for so long because of the way he traveled to Jotunheim. He went through that like the middle place. Yeah. Yeah. Because since because they did not use aspects of Faye. Did a phenomenal job, especially with the voice actors. Really was captivating. Yeah, no. I still love God of War Ragnarok. Still, let's see it. God of War 2018 and God of War Ragnarok still one of my favorite games. But yeah, compared to Elden Ring was just a better game overall. Uh, every wrong with okay. Close that out. We are going to switch to Souls. But before I play, I had a lot of fucking cheese and crackers. Oh my. My lactose intolerant ass needs to go take a shit.